Good evening. Welcome to the February 25th study session for the VPS School Board. First up, let's take roll call. Director Sproul.
Here.
Director Smith.
Here.
Director Zavala.
Here.
Director Barrows.
Here.
There you are. And I am here as well, and we are ready to get started and learn about some amazing things happening in our school district. And we will start first with Superintendent Snell. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Decker, and good to see everyone this evening. We have a pretty full study session tonight where we're going to focus on our pre-K to grade 8 learning. This is the part 2 of the 9 through 12 focus that we had on the January study session. Before we get into that content, though, we do have a few reports, and so we're going to actually start with our middle school student advisory report. It's going to be given by one of the advisors, Jennifer Holm, and then we'll go into our high school advisory report and then finish up with our staff advisory. And we'll have folks introduce themselves as they come on for you. So starting first with Ms. Holm, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Good evening, board members, district leadership, fellow presenters, and guests. My name is Jennifer Holm, and I thank you for this opportunity to share with you this evening. I'm an associate principal over at Discovery Middle School, and I co-facilitate our middle school advisory alongside another building administrator, Mr. Tony Libertor, and district leadership. This evening, I would like to share with you some updates about our program from this year. The middle school advisory program is in its second year of implementation. We have 4 to 5 students from each of our 6 comprehensive middle schools, and they represent all 3 grade levels. Students are recommended from building teams, and we are looking for students that have a voice that they are willing to share, and that they also collectively represent the diversity across their school campus. We run each visit like a field trip, and each of the 6 schools host 1 meeting in the year. So far, we've hosted 4 of our sessions. Orchestrating these visits during the school days decreases barriers to participation and increases access. This year, we've run our advisory as like a stakeholder input group. We've asked this group for topics of discussion and interest, as well as asking our middle school administrators. And finally, we've taken into consideration some of the bigger topics of discussion that are impacting our district and our community. Once we have set discussion topics, we've invited those with decision-making power at the district level to help facilitate conversations on those topics. We have found that this form of collaboration has led to interesting discussions, learning opportunities for students, and invaluable feedback for each of the respective programs. For example, last month, Mr. Dave Bennett was able to host discussions about middle school athletic offerings, as well as hear student input about what is working or missing from our programs. Or earlier this year, we were able to have Ms. Christy Lindholm and Ms. Lucy Estrada Guzman come and engage with students about their feelings on the world language offerings that we have, and really ask and dig into why students want to learn languages. The students shared that both for professional opportunities as well as for social reasons, they crave having language options in the K-12 school system. In addition to providing input on a variety of topics, it was important to us that we create a safe space that allows for vulnerable discussions. In order to facilitate that in a space where students only see each other a few times across the school year, we involve them in community building conversations and STEM-related challenges and activities. This has been found to quickly build rapport among the group, which allows them to engage meaningfully in the stakeholder input conversations. We've built toothpick marshmallow animals, we've stacked cups with rubber bands, and cut index cards in a very specific way in order to fit their head through it. This leads to laughs, problem solvings, and perseverance through challenges. And we use community circles and random discussion prompts to allow the group to continue to build as a cohesive and functional group. Finally, a favorite part of each meeting is the tour of each school. These tours are led by the advisory students from that school. The focus is showing both the physical space of the different schools in our district, but also highlighting cool or distinctive features of the school, such as student clubs that they have, activities, or spaces. Next slide, please. To give a clear example of the through line of our conversations this year, I highlight this example. In the early fall, when we were discussing potential topics for the year, we noticed that there were a lot of questions about the physical space use in schools. This took us down a path of connecting with our building facilities leadership, AJ Panter, as well as a community agency that the district uses in school design, LSW Architects. In our February meeting, Mr. Libertor had students rank order ideas about school spaces. The topics listed here were of top priority to the students. In March, the students will engage in a discussion about what goes into school design, as well as provide input to be considered for potential future remodel, revision, or new buildings. We're purposely hosting that conversation at McLaughlin because it is a rather recent build in comparison to the other middle schools. I look forward to hearing the ideas that students present about space design with the adolescent lens at the forefront of the conversation. In order to incorporate student voice into tonight's presentation, I worked with the Discovery team to discuss 2 questions, and we can give that a listen now.
Nice, and it's fun to express yourself in different ways. And I also like that we get to have a say in different parts of the school district decisions.
Cool, thank you. All right, and Marcus, what do you like most about being on advisory?
I like being able to meet all new people from around the district and seeing my answers to their questions reflected on district offices.
Excellent, thank you. All right, our second question is, why is it important that we have a middle school advisory? Jacob.
So you get everyone's different opinion and make it better next year.
Awesome, thank you. Amaya. Why is it important to have a middle school advisory?
I think it's important because we get around like I said, like other people our ages and share our opinions, and because sometimes like people our age know better for like what's better for us sometimes and what we want. So getting like teenagers like ideas and like opinions out could be good because like we know what we want, I guess. I don't know.
Thank you, Amaya.
Yeah.
All right, Brooklyn, close us out. Why is it important to have a middle school advisory?
I think it's important to have a middle school advisory because then the kids get to have a say in their school, their school experience and what they believe should happen in their school experience.
All right. Thank you to our middle school advisors for taking part in this. We always have a good time when we get together. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for allowing me to share this experience with you. It is definitely a joyful part of my job each time we get to meet, and each facilitator that we have worked with this year has shared similar sentiments. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Any questions from the board or move into the high school advisory? Okay, I will invite our high school reps to come on the camera and share their update to the board.
Hi, everyone.
Hi guys, I'm Ariana. You guys should introduce yourselves. I don't know what order we're going in yet.
I'm Christian. I'm from Hudson's Bay.
Hey everyone, I'm Avery. I'm I think we can start off with going over the January meeting, and then we can move on to the belonging goal and then the February meeting. Want to start us off, Christian?
Of course. Thank you, Avery. So, on January 29th, me and some other Bay students gave a tour of the school, its classrooms, and just some the activities we do, just to start off the meeting light and just to provide a nice way to enter into another month. And for this meeting, I think if my memory serves me well, rather than sticking to the usual objective centered around the panorama surveys and trying to increase belonging, we talked more along the lines of sexual misconduct and due to some recent events that happened over the past year. So we took some time to address that and some members presented a presentations that way they could inform us more on what was going on and provide us with some extra support. And then after that, after we went through the presentation, we split into 4 groups and we wrote down our ideas and concerns on what was shared to us in the presentation, basically like concerns for protecting students in the future, questions we had for any details that were unclear, or just any positive feedback we had. Like, yeah, I think that's a good idea for us to do in the future. Um, so yeah, and it was different than the usual meeting, but I think it was a really good opportunity for us to um talk about something that was more sensitive, but also would bring a lot of comfort to both the staff and the students. So that way we can create a more safe and safe and just offer support and create a more transparency within current topics in the district. So that's the basic rundown for January.
When it comes to our belonging goals, this is my first year in student advisory, but I believe in the past we've chosen lower percentages, around 49% and below. But this year, we were very ambitious. Last meeting, we were torn between 49 and 50. But in January, we officially decided on the 50% goal. So in our next few meetings, we'll be working towards, I guess, reaching that goal. It's a lot more ambitious than we've gone for in the past, but we really believe if we shoot for the moon, we will land among the stars. We want to improve our schools to the best of our abilities. So we're going to be working really hard this year to make sure our belonging increases as much as it can. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And for our next meeting, it was over Zoom in February. And some of the main topics we talked about were the cell phone policy revisions we're going to be having going forward. And I imagine, as all of you know, there are a lot of different opinions on cell phones in schools among the students. And so one of the goals that we had as a student advisory was to use the food-centered talks that we started this school year, where students get together and there's some shared meal and they're asked a lot of questions about various things from belonging to different implementation of programs and policies. And so this is one of the ones that we were asked to talk to all the students in school who attended those events about. And so I believe by our next meeting, March 12th, we're all supposed to go to the student body, have those talks, and ask them questions about what they thought was best for cell phone policy moving forward, whether it should be a all day, no phone usage, or a all day during classes, but still available to use during passing periods or lunch. And so that's one of the major things that we're working on right now is just getting that student input so we can bring that to the next meeting. And another thing that we focused on at that last meeting was planning for our Student Leadership Summit, which is coming up in May. We're really excited to do it. We're doing it at WSUV again. I believe this is our third Student Leadership Summit that we've done. They've been really successful in the past. That's how we've gotten a lot of that we have into the Student Advisory Board. And so we're just starting to plan. We're starting to figure out who we want to come and do keynote speeches, what events we want to have, what activities. But it's just a really great way that we get students interested in what the advisory is doing and show a wide variety of student leaders and people in school who could be leaders what the district is doing and what the individual can do within their schools to help out their district. And so that's kind of what we've been doing the last couple of months, I think, since this last board meeting. And so are there any questions anybody has about what we've been doing?
I'm
Okay, well, thank you
just
very much.
glad.
Oh, sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry. A little late
No, go ahead.
demuting, unmuting. I'm just, while it was a difficult time, I know, for students and staff for at the January meeting, I was actually so glad to see that it was at Hudson's Bay and it was in person, because I really felt like you needed that opportunity. And it didn't just affect the community at Hudson's Bay, it also affected the community, the entire community. So I was glad to see that the meeting was in person at Hudson's Bay, and I am really glad to hear that you took that opportunity, kind of put the original agenda over to the side and really discussed it. That was a great decision.
Thank you. Yes,
Any
we
other
were glad to be able to talk about that too. Thank you.
Yeah, and they did generate a lot of good ideas. And so our team and Director Smith and Director Zavala were able to listen to some of those ideas as well. And how can we incorporate those into the kinds of experiences, training that students get over the course of their career, and the kinds of training that staff get in support of them. And just talked about boundaries and how hard sometimes that is to know when where those lines are and what students should do about that. And so just really honest conversations, really appreciate the student advisory for having them. So any other questions for our representatives tonight? All right, Ariana, Christian, Avery, thanks for doing a great job as usual. Um, Now we are on to our staff advisory. And so we have 3 guests with us this evening, and I think they have slides that will allow them to introduce themselves and also give you an update on what they've been working on.
Hello. I am Heather Roan. I'm the teacher librarian at Hazeldell. This is my first year with the staff advisory committee. I was approached by a couple different colleagues last year when the committee opened it up to have people visit. And so I went to a meeting and was just really reminded that how much we talk to our students at Hazeldell about finding your voice and using your specific voice. So I really wanted to join the staff advisory committee, kind of to just practice what I preach to the students all the time. And what I have actually found is I've been surprised at how much I feel like it has really added to my experience this year and how informative it has been. Not just from the really thoughtful ways that the meetings are arranged and the way the agendas are, but also just having a chance to really talk to other staff members that I wouldn't normally come in contact with in my day-to-day has been really motivational for me. This year has been a hard year, and it's really been uplifting and reaffirming to get to meet other people, and everyone who's at that meeting is passionate about education and passionate about their contribution to our community. And you know, we can each get really stuck in our own bubble. And so it's really nice to be reminded that my elementary librarian bubble is really part of this whole much larger tapestry that follows these kids all the way through until they're graduating and beyond. So now you can go to my next slide. So one of the main things that we talked about at the last meeting was about the decision-making process for making changes to the 504 and IEP platform. And they talked a lot, they walked us through the process and really highlighted how thoughtful that process had been to look at the 2 top contenders for a new platform, and really highlighting how they tried to really get feedback from a wide variety of people who would be impacted. And then talked about why the decision was made to go with Synergy SE, and some of the things that really stood out to me was having all student data in one place, since the Synergy SE will connect with Synergy, that it will help make IEPs and the progress report process more efficient. And this is a big one. All staff, including classroom teachers with Synergy SE, would be able to access IEPs and 504s. Right now, the only way that anybody who is not a part of crafting the IEPs and 504s has to rely on, like at my school, we have to rely on our school counselor to give us that information, and we can't access it. Maybe if we're trying to think about something we're doing with a student and connect it with that, we kind of they have to be a gatekeeper for that information. So that was pretty huge. It would also help with improved communication with families. And they highlighted that Synergy SE had better training and support. And one of the things that I think really came across was how intentional people are trying to be about the training, and how that rollout process is going to be happening. So they talked about people being able to be a part of the planning committee to talk about how best to provide that training and what kinds of things really needed to be provided to make it as seamless a process as possible. Whenever you're getting something new, it's challenging. So trying to minimize those challenges, I think. So that's what I had to present. Now it's Susan's turn.
Hello. My name is Susan Marino. I am a nutrition services at Alki Middle School. And this is my third year on the staff advisory. I joined because I just wanted to see what it was all about, meet new people, and kind of form what the committee was going to be doing, which has been very fun and interesting. And from there, I was a part of the strategic planning committee. And that was really interesting. Really great conversations we had there. And that was a lot of fun as well. So yeah, next slide, please. We went over the cell phone policy drafts, the differences in two different sides. The main difference was whether or not to allow students to have their phones during passing times or lunches. At first, I personally was against phones at all during the day. I think it's a distraction, but then I got to thinking, the lunch lady and me got to thinking that a lot of kids use their cell phone to scan their barcode for their lunch, which makes my line move really fast, which makes a lot of people happy. So I changed my tune, and I am all for them having that be allowed during lunches. I think as a group, we were pretty even as far as half and half, 50-50-ish on either side of that. And I'm looking forward to more discussions regarding that at our next meeting. And the next speaker is Chris.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Walther. I am the Career Center clerk at Columbia River. I have been on the staff advisory for 2 years. This is my second year. And this is my first year as co-chair because I have happy volunteer hand and will sign up for whatever. So, and I have to give a disclaimer because I have a 120-pound bull mastiff behind me trying to get in here, thinking that there's strangers in here because she can hear your voice. So this could be very exciting. Anyway, okay. Next slide. We talked about the hate and bias protocol in regard to staff relations, because that's just as important as the student to student, student to staff. There are things that happen, you know, amongst the adults in the building. So there, Max Wise, it was talking about there's going to be a committee that's formed to talk about policies and ideas for trainings and preventative measures and all of those things. And they're trying to get a committee of a lot of different people to represent the entire district. You know, different job classifications, different ethnicities. So they're just trying to get everybody represented. And he did make a comment that VEA is on board with the idea behind the committee. So we've got that going for us. And I think that's really it. That kind of sums it up for that.
Thank you, Chris, Susan, and where's else? My screen has moved around. Heather, you're still in there too. So thank you for sharing. Are there any questions from the board? And I know Director Smith and Director Burrows had a chance to go to the last meeting as well, to listen in. I know that's been a nice practice too, to have board directors at these meetings. So any questions or?
I don't have any questions, but I just have a noticing. If these three staff members are an indication of the energy that goes on at staff advisory, it must be very positive and very noisy too. So I appreciate you putting in the extra time. I know the end of a work day is exhausting by that time you're kind of spent. So thank you for doing that. It really does help us to keep a pulse on what's going on with our staff community. So thank you so much for doing that.
I have a real quick, that's okay. Many of you have been able to come to my school and enjoy lunch at my school. And if any of you would like to stop by, let me know. I'm happy to make you lunch and show you all the fun stuff and all the awesome stuff that we're doing in our kitchens.
Thank you, Susan. We actually hosted our community leaders advisory at Alki and had some of the community leaders have lunch in the Alki cafeteria. So that was great. Appreciate Susan, you representing. And I would just echo Kathy's comments that each of our advisories are like it's a lot of like it's hard work and we're wrestling with some really difficult topics, but as you can pick up from the representatives from staff, from the student advisories tonight, we also have a lot of fun and it's very inspirational, as Heather articulated as well. So appreciate you all being on here tonight, and I think we'll transition to the progress monitoring part of our agenda, and people are welcome to stay on or say goodnight as well. So as you know, our mission, each student every day, and we do that through inspired learning and growing community around them. And everything is working in support of the vision of a graduate, the experiences that we give for our students. And you're going to hear more about that vision of a graduate. Last time we were presenting more at the tail end of the journey, and now we're upstream a little bit more with our younger students. You'll also know that when we come together at our regular board meetings, you're getting updates on the progress monitoring of the strategic plan. And these are designed to be much more in-depth opportunities to really learn about what's happening, both the outcomes and the actions that we're taking. And I believe I'm going to turn it over to Janelle Ephraim, one of our executive directors. And I can't remember, were you going to start on this slide or do I need to do one more here, Janelle?
You just have
one more. So this is our theory of action related to the strategic plan. And we talk about strong and consistent learning experiences across our system. We talk about two strands. One is our work of making sure kids feel included and have access, and you've heard about that already from our student advisory. And then the other strand or pathway is around the way we work together, our collaboration. And so our theory of action is that if we use the strategic plan and our equity policy to really help us focus our work, and our professional learning community process to do, then we're going to grow together. And because of that, the student learning and student experience are going to be positively impacted. So everything that we do is really trying to concentrate around this to help our students aspire to that vision of a graduate that our community helped define. Now I will turn it over to Janelle. And then throughout the evening, we have a number of speakers. So please feel free to raise your hand or unmute. And we're going to transition kind of from Janelle to the next, to the next, to the next. And so I'm not going to interrupt all the time, but just know that you can interrupt at any point. So Janelle, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jeff, for grounding us in the theory of action and our vision for our graduates. I'm going to be sharing more about how we're getting students to the finish line, focusing specifically on two of our goals in the student-centered experience. You'll hear from schools and departments about how they're developing and sustaining a culture of belonging, safety, and positive student-staff relationships, as well as preparing each student for the opportunities and demands for the next steps in their journey. Next slide, please. All right, as we look to really develop and sustain a culture that fosters belonging, I'm going to be focusing on our early learners, specifically around the goal of strengthening supports provided to students and families for transitions through grade levels. Next slide, please. So in alignment with our strategic plan goals, our vision is really to increase access and inclusion for our earliest learners so that they're ready to experience the K-12 experience. We'll be looking more deeply at developmental data. I'll share WAKids results for our early learners. And really the results that I share will be a progress monitoring towards how we're doing as far as working towards meeting the goal of 65% of our kindergartners who participated in early learning programs, meeting 5 or more of the proficiency areas in the WAKids assessment. Thank you. So, but before I dig in to the progress, I really want to share some of the exciting news about how we've increased access for students. So as you know, we offer a continuum of service in preschool for 3 and 4-year-olds. We have our transitional kindergarten program, or TK, as well as inclusionary preschool. Both of these programs serve students with special needs as well as students without, while our early childhood education program, or our ECSE, serves students who currently have an IEP that qualifies for a preschool program. So as you see, our TK classrooms are designed to serve 4-year-olds in our district. And we've increased the number of students who have participated in that. This year, we have had 252 students enrolled in TK, and that's up from last year. Our inclusionary preschool, it has a similar mission as TK, but we do serve 3 and 4-year-olds with slightly smaller ratios in those programs. But we have been able to serve 52 students in that program. If you go back up and look at our Kindergarten Jumpstart, we've served 996 students in Kindergarten Jumpstart this year. That's up about 200 from last year. And our evening preschool numbers are up to 144, as well as our ECSE numbers, 123. So we've had an increase of almost serving almost 300 more students this year. If you move to the next slide. So you'll probably recall that I've talked a little bit about what our WAKids assessment is. I want to kind of reground you in what this assessment is. Basically, the WAKids assessment is an opportunity for our students to show their skills and knowledge in authentic ways as they interact in the classroom environment. The assessment it's a tool that measures readiness in 6 different domains: social, emotional, physical, cognitive, language, literacy, and mathematics. As you'll see from our data this year, we have students who have experienced readiness at the highest levels in the physical domain. Both TK students and students in ECSE and inclusion programs score, you'll see 76% and 92%. So that those are high in those particular areas. We do have some areas of opportunity. For our TK students, you'll see the math domain, whereas 57% of our students are ready. It is different for our students who are in ECSE and inclusionary classrooms, where they are showing more readiness in the area of math, and more opportunities as we look at the literacy domain, where they are their opportunity is at 49% are meeting proficiency there. Thank you. And so I know this was a brief update for you, but we are excited because I believe that this is clear evidence that our programs are thriving. We have increased needs in our community that we're trying to meet. We've had increased participation and opportunities for our students. Currently, we're in the process of opening additional special education and inclusion preschool classrooms as a result of this increased need. We do want you to be on the lookout for our annual report in the near future. Once we finalize our kindergarten WA Kids data, we'll have this report ready for you. I am going to pass this. Oh, I see Director Decker, you have a hand up. Oh.
Yes, I do. Next year, these kiddos that do the WA Kids through our early childhood programs will do WA Kids in the fall, and we will be able to compare, yes,
that's
what
correct.
they
Yes.
did this fall for next fall, which would further show us how much growth they've had from being in the early childhood programs. And that's what
Yes.
we're looking at, right?
That's what we're looking at. And we are going to, as we finalize our kindergarten WA Kids data from this year, we're going to be able to compare our students who were in program last year as well.
Thanks.
Really quick, Janelle, thank you for everything. It's so exciting to see the impact that our expanded early learning is having on our young learners. So that's great. And I look forward to seeing this program continuing to expand. I'm curious, do we collect data of entering kindergartners that participate in non-district early learning opportunities?
So we do in some cases. It really just depends on the type of so WA Kids is also something that some of our community programs use. And so it really depends on the type of program. If it was a more formalized program, we have that information. It's less often available, like if it was an at-home program where, maybe a grandma provided.
Right.
Here.
No, I guess I'm more looking at like the level of any early learning opportunity participation. So not WA Kids, but like for all of our entering kindergartners. I don't remember in kindergarten registration if it asked if there was any early learning, whether it was VPS or not.
So our kindergarten teachers do engage in the WA Kids interviews with the with families, and so so that data is captured anecdotally. But as far as formally capturing it, that's something we can certainly begin to do.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, my instinct is that the data would clearly show that kids who have access and opportunities to early learning are going to start their K-12 journey more successful. So it's great that we're tracking the kids who participate within our own VPS early learning to see their growth from pre-K to K. But it seems like creating a complete picture of all of our kinders and what their pre-kinder experience was. You know, there are bills in our state legislature, you know, let's show the whole story. So, you know, kids who have those access, the access and the opportunities. So what's the, you know, if it's 70% of our entering kinders have experience in early learning, I think that would be just interesting. And then compare those, that WA Kids data for those who have access versus don't.
Absolutely. Thank you for that feedback.
But I look forward to the report. Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions? All right, I'm gonna pass it along to Christy. She's gonna talk more about what these goals look like in our schools and departments.
Thanks, Janelle. Good evening. You saw this slide in the last study session, and we kept it in because we're really trying to paint a picture of how our PLC teams, starting at the board and superintendent level and working their way into the classrooms, how they are helping us change the face of what kids are learning and getting out of being in our school system. So it's a way to increase coherence, it's a way to get alignment, and it is a really good way for us to look at pull the thread through of school improvement and how we're functioning. So what we hope you'll see tonight is a continuation from last time of high school. Now you've seen a little bit about early learning. Tonight you'll see elementary and middle school, and we want to help draw a through line of what we're doing at central office and how that's having impact on our kids. So next slide. This is our 5-year vision for our second goal, which is around the student experience. We debated like, how long should this take us? So we really thought we'd need 5 years to really get all that we want our students to have, which would include a guaranteed and viable curriculum, would include really highly engaging lessons and opportunities to learn that are both culturally responsive and of real world interest. We want those lessons to be rooted in standards and executed through student dialogue, academic discourse, so that kids are learning from and with one another. And this all would lend itself to students being able to set learning goals and receive feedback both from their peers and from the staff that work with them. And then my last slide. These should look familiar because you help us set them. These are the goals that we're progress monitoring in the schools that you'll see tonight: math, language arts, and our multilingual learner success. And again, this is a way to keep ourselves accountable and help schools attach to the district's work through the strategic plan by making sure that these show up in everybody's school improvement plan. So what you'll hopefully see tonight is a direct line of school improvement planning, strategic work that leverages instructional practices and strategies in classrooms that get us closer to our 5-year vision. So the next slide is going to be to Lucy. She's going to talk a little bit about some strategies and structures we're leveraging to do just that, especially for our multilingual learners.
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see everybody, and it's exciting to speak to you about some of the work we've been doing with 7 steps. You're familiar with a lot of this information on this slide, but I've included it again because we want you to use it as a reference. If you're ever in a classroom or speaking with any staff member, especially if you click on the 7 steps link, it just gives you a quick visual of what the 7 steps are. And again, we really focus on it being 7 steps to a language-rich classroom, which is very beneficial to multilingual learners, but it's beneficial to everyone. And like Christy said, this is something that I'm really happy that we are, that the 7 steps is playing a significant role in enhancing our educational practice. And one of the most impactful pieces is how we are gradually integrating it into our systems, and that it is part of our school improvement process for many schools. And the integration really influences how the direction of our strategic plan. And the goal of increasing exit rates by 10% would be doubling. We're in the middle of WIDA access testing right now, and will not, it closes on March 21st. So it will be really exciting to share the data and the growth, hopefully, that our schools and our students are having through like embedding these really great strategies. Sorry, these really great strategies into what we do every day. So hopefully when you go into buildings, you'll be seeing these strategies throughout K through 12 and even pre-K through 12, as we've had so many teachers and principals interested in these, and we will continue training in the summer as well.
Well, good evening, school board members and presenters. Thank you for the baton, Lucy. That's a nice segue. As we talk about strategies that impact learning, what better way to start looking at a picture of learning than revisiting the data dashboard? And school board, you were really the impetus and the inspiration behind the creation of this data dashboard, with a lot of feedback from other members of our school community about how can we keep our public informed about our progress in as much real time as we can. So we wanted to highlight that our dashboard is alive and well still on our Vancouver Public Schools website in the learning section. And when you click on that and scroll down, you'll see a picture of this first page. And then it gives you overarching information, but when you click on the student progress, and you can go to the next slide, please. It will provide to the left a menu of different assessments and scores from WA Kids, Smarter Balanced, iReady, that gives you a snapshot of how we are doing at a very high level. And with our iReady window having closed just a few weeks ago, we have updated the overall iReady reading and iReady math scores into this dashboard. And if you're new to the dashboard, we want to provide a reminder that you're able to actually filter down. Right now it's showing reading, and this is just a snapshot. But if you click on the math tab, you can see the math. But then you can also filter by grade and by demographics so that you get a narrower look at overall how our students in K through 8 are performing in Vancouver Public Schools on the most recent iReady. Brian, did you want to add something to that?
Maybe we can just pause for a second before we shift to the next slide, see if there's a question.
You bet.
Okay, we can go to the next slide. What I'm going to share really connects well with what Christy was sharing around collaborative teams and how we collaborate at different levels, from school board district level to district administrators and school guiding coalitions down to collaborative PLC teams at the grade level and similar course content. And we wanted to share this slide in that our administrators, instructional coaches, and language development specialists have had a lot of experiences this year, multiple, probably 5 or 6, looking at fresh data sets as it relates to their school improvement planning, learning, attendance, discipline, where we're going through data review processes as a district leadership team and reflecting on the impact of our strategies and school improvement plans, trying to highlight evidence of our practice having impact on students, that collective efficacy, and then also making adjustments and reflecting on what's happening for all of our kids from a tier 1 experience, and then also designing and leaning into, when we take this data review process back to our school leadership teams, what are tier 2 action plans that we might put in for a smaller group of students that will change some of the outcomes, and our practice being reflective. And so as we narrow this down today, you're going to start hearing from some of our school leaders and 3 different school experiences today. And I think you'll start to hear some of these things in action in the stories that have gone all the way down to the student level. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. So Brian talked about data sets, and I'm really excited because one of the data sets that is new to us this year, that through a decision-making process in VPS last year, we decided at the elementary to implement DIBBLS, which is a universal screener for kindergartners through second graders, although the screener does go up through sixth grade as well. And it provides information at such a deeper level than what we've been able to have to really determine what those foundational skills that students have readily in place and what they do not readily have in place. And so this first slide gives you a glimmer of these overarching skills that we look at in a very 1-minute measure. So it's a very quick screener that gives us information about how students hear and manipulate sounds, how they map sounds to letters, how they read accurately and fluently at the kindergarten, first, and second grade level. So this is an overview of what those scores are. If you go to the next slide, please. In order to show you just a snapshot of the data, I've worked with the dual language department, and we've posted for you composite scores of our kinder through first graders in both our English classrooms and our dual language classrooms. And the composite score is a combination of all those foundational scores combined. But you'll also notice on both of these indicators from the DIBBLS 8th edition and the Lectura version for our dual language classrooms that there is something called a risk indicator and RAN. And RAN is not something that we've talked about at a school board meeting in the last couple of years, but for those who are unfamiliar, it stands for Rapid Automatized Naming Fluency. And basically it is, again, a screener that is prescribed by legislation in the Washington state to demonstrate students who may potentially have some reading difficulties. We call it sometimes a dyslexia screener, but it does not diagnose dyslexia. What it does, it has students name in a very rapid progression things that are familiar to them. And what the theory behind that is, if they can do that in a rapid progression, then they've got some things in place to be a skillful reader. And if they struggle with that, then they are going to be far more at risk. So the great news about these universal screeners, about RAN and about this foundational screener, is that we finally have a glimpse at some of the skills that our students have in place or don't have in place. So this is a high level picture of that, and I know that you're going to want some more deeper details, which we can provide for you at another time. But I do want to go to the next slide. So the big factors in using a universal screener is that we've not had an opportunity as a whole school district to be able to identify in a really deep ways those student skills that are in place that help them be skillful readers. So this DIBBLS M class and DIBBLS Lectura allows teachers to have access in an incredibly efficient way to identify those risk factors for students. Once the screening window is completed, there are reports that allow, within the platform, that allow teachers to identify students who have very specific needs. So it helps teachers as they meet in their PLC times to plan instruction and intervention. And as we talk about intervention, this platform also provides lesson plans for interventions, evidence-based interventions that teachers can utilize. And in addition to that, it also provides progress monitoring tools for teachers to use to measure as they intervene in cycles, how are our students doing? Kathy, do you want me to answer your question now before I get to the opportunities?
I'm just curious now, I guess.
Yeah.
How often
It's a
Do
universal
groups?
screener. Universal screener is 3 times a year.
Okay.
This
Thank you.
year, we did not set an expectation about progress monitoring rules for this first year because people are just getting used to the tool. And so when we get to these opportunities, we are continuing to work with our instructional coaches, our principals, and as much as we can in buildings with our educators to develop their fluency in utilizing the platform. We recognize that some of our schools are old school dibbles where they would get from the University of Oregon the little booklets and handwrite, and that's all great. And interestingly, some of our educators, as we've moved to this electronic function, which is far more efficient, it's been an adjustment for them. They would much prefer to do the handwriting, but that's okay. That's okay. What we are doing right now, I'm really excited. We're working with a couple targeted schools, and Ogden is one of them, Kathy, to use the progress monitoring with Fidelity. We've identified a couple grade levels, one intermediate actually, and one primary, to use the platform, to use the progress monitoring tools, enter the data. We'll attend some PLC meetings, collect that, and then share that experience district-wide to provide some points for next year when we do have some progress monitoring roles for all. It's super exciting to be able to identify down to the foundational skills level what students need so that we can intervene accordingly before students' deficits get so large and they're in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade and they can't access the materials that they're reading. So we will continue, like I said, to provide professional development with that. But we are going to move on and share iReady information. And this chart, I know there's a lot of information and your eyes might be going a little wobbly looking at this. I want to explain a couple things on this. In the proficiency 24-25, you'll notice that for kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, it says not required. iReady reading was not required for those grade levels this year because we replaced it with Dibble's M-Class. So that's why you see that. We did have some schools still have kindergarten teachers, 1st grade teachers, 2nd grade teachers participate in that test so they could collect another data point, but it wasn't enough to be statistically valid in order to incorporate that for our purposes. So overall, we've got 3 columns here. The first column is on proficiency, or the first table is about proficiency. The middle table is about typical growth. The last table is on improved placement, which is important. At proficiency, I'm really proud to say that as you look at cohort data, every one of our grade levels made improvements by cohort. So, well, starting in 2nd grade, when they became 3rd graders the next year, from 33 to 43%. Our 3rd graders went from 43% in 3rd grade. Oh, well, they went down a little bit, I guess. And our 4th graders in 23-24 went up to 34% in 24-25. So we saw some gains in proficiency. When you look straight across from grade level to grade level proficient data, it looks pretty flat. At the typical growth level, we also saw gains in reading, in students' reading performance. And this was, again, last winter, 23-24 to this winter, 23-24. And when you look at improved placements at our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, that's almost 50% of our kiddos are making improved placements. So there are some things. iReady is quite a platform and it gives us a lot of information. Let's talk about some of the strengths and opportunities. Overall, we did see improvements in vocabulary proficiency, and I really think as I reflect on the conversation that Lucy shared with 7 steps and the focus that our schools have on oral language development and use of student talk throughout the school day, I think that has contributed to vocabulary proficiency. We've also seen overall in grades 3 through 5, comprehension overall score was increased. with the comprehension of literature skills being higher. And when we think at the elementary level, that's not necessarily surprising because their foundation is in narratives and storytelling and a lot of read alouds as they go up through the grades. But that also presents some opportunities as well. While we've had improvements in vocabulary proficiency, the number of students who've remained in that yellow band, that 1 year below band, that has remained the same. So we know that ahead of us, as we work with educators, we work with coaches, we need to continue building background knowledge in everything that we do so that students have access to their learning, and that educators are really knowing about their students so that they can pull them in. And obviously, as Lucy shared, continuing to focus on promoting language through the 7 steps. Additionally, this is a huge one. We need to build our students' understanding of informational text. I'm really excited that our team has been involved last year in working with coaches, and last year and this year with educators in creating some integrated lessons with social studies into our ELA curriculum. And that work was featured into the creation of a scope and sequence document that we created at the end of last year with our educators. Rose Nelson has worked with our teacher librarians and a group of educators with a grant that she's also received in putting picture books in the hands of educators and creating lessons that are culturally relevant and incredibly meaningful. And those lessons have also been incorporated into our scope and sequence docs. So that's exciting. But we know that we have work to do in science. So infusing that same level of focus into science is next on our docket. And that includes not just reading about, but also writing about, because writing informs reading, reading informs writing. And so you need both of them together. So that's work that we're excited about and is definitely an opportunity zone for us. So in math, this is kind of the same model: proficiency, typical growth, improved placements. We do have gains across all levels. And again, this is a nicer graph because you don't see that anybody's excessed. All of our kindergartners through 5th graders participate in iReady. So we saw proficiency gains across grade level, across all grade levels. Well, not across all grade levels, but around most of them. We did, typical growth looks pretty flat. And almost every one of our cohorts in math demonstrated improved placements. Next slide. So to provide some details in that, when you look at the domains, the great news is we're starting to see some solid gains in numbers and operations. And as you all know, that's the foundation of our mathematical skills. And in grades 1, 2, and 4, they had 20% increase from fall to winter proficiency, and that's pretty significant. We saw some nice improvements in algebra and algebraic thinking. And we also saw significant gains in measurement and data proficiency across all grade levels, which typically we don't see until spring. So it's nice to see that. And we know that we have a lot of opportunities. Our proficiency levels aren't where we want them. At the elementary level, we are continuing to work on emphasizing the use of manipulatives and discourse in all math classrooms. As we created our essential standards documents and shared those with our educators, the use of manipulatives is a must for our students, and it's something that needs to be increased, not just in our most primary classrooms, but also in our upper grade classrooms as well. We are going to continue to provide PD to promote that understanding of what math looks like on a developmental continuum. How kids at, kindergarten level make meaning looks different than how they make meaning at a 3rd grade level, at a 5th grade level. And we just led our coaches through some really meaningful PD last month on that. And then finally, yes, we have Eureka, a really rigorous curriculum, but promoting engagement. And one of the ways that we promote engagement is through Mindset Mathematics, which has been our high cap, Jen Brown Sanders, has introduced this and worked with Melina in providing professional development. But basically, the idea is it's an emphasis on visual math tasks that promote students' problem-solving skills, creativity, and in the process of utilizing that and implementing that into your math lessons, it also promotes students' mindset. So there's actually some cognition that occurs that helps students' sense of efficacy actually improve in the process. So we will continue to integrate that into all that we do. Kaya.
Thank you. So when you just clarified that you're implementing that into not just high cap, but across the board.
Correct. Across
Okay.
the board. Yes. Yes. We, through high cap, we were actually able to buy a set for every single school across VPS. So they all have the resources for every grade level.
And so the professional development that we're doing to support those resources, is that like
So right now,
process?
right now the professional development, there have been offerings after school. People can use their professional development funds. We created a community of practice. The timing seems to be the bugaboo that we're working on right now, getting enough people to sign up for these after school sessions. But we're also, as Christy and Brian talked about, the school improvement plans. How do we, for us in our structure, how do we ensure that this happens at every single building? We have to get into the school buildings. So training our coaches, our principals, our fellows, so that they can support the work at the buildings is really crucial. And working with people in their school improvement plans to make sure that they have what they need and the resources they need is something that we endeavor to do.
Thank you. Those are just follow-up questions. When I raised my hand, I was actually reflecting. I'm sorry I took too long, but on the last slide, is there a way to go back really quick?
I'm not working the slide down. There you go.
Perfect. Thank you. So could you explain improved placement versus?
Yeah.
Could you just clarify what improved placement is?
Yeah, improved placement means that if someone was, perhaps they were 2 years below, maybe they went up to 1 year below. Or if someone was 1 year below, maybe they went to MET.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. So we have proficiency, which is just based on who was met grade
How
level.
did they perform?
And then I understand the typical growth, and then improved placement would be just, and that's based on number of years behind, right? So it's full years. So it's like if you're 2 years behind and now you're 1 year behind.
Well, but it could be improved placement could also be somebody moved from 1 year behind to at grade level.
Right. But okay,
yes.
so it's
Yes. Oh, yes, you're right. Okay. 1 year. Yes.
So one thing I'm noticing in this data, as well as the reading data, there is good cohort improvement, from year to year, except at the 3rd grade level. And that's consistent in reading too. So I'm just wondering, have we dug deeper into why that cohort is struggling? I mean, obviously there's the big pandemic, but I mean, this cohort started kindergarten after. So I just would be curious to do a little bit more exploration of why that cohort specifically is struggling.
Yeah, that's a great question, Kyle. Thank you. Other questions?
As always, there's me. Thanks, Chris. So I just wanted to comment on the PD around understanding developmental continuum. To me, this is sort of like the crux of everything, right? If you understand how kids make meaning, if you understand the steps in which they need to take in order to understand a process or a concept, digging down to find out where they're not getting it it's not, you can't keep reteaching something over and over again if what they're missing is way back here on number sense, right? If they don't have number sense, you can show them how to, carry the one or whatever, however we do it, and 150 times, but they don't understand numbers. So getting, and I think it's important for, the upper grade teachers to really understand, like, so yeah, we can do this, but they're not understanding what the number 8 is. So how are they going to understand all of that? So I love that this is a focus, because it is like the way we help the kids that are struggling. It is the way to help kids that are struggling. So I love it. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for the questions. Really appreciate it. Okay, I think we are ready for the next slide. So what I've been most excited to share, well, I was really excited to share all of this information with you, but one of the favorite parts about my role is to be able to play the part of a troubadour. And so tonight I get to be a troubadour twice and share with you or introduce to you a couple principals, but starting with Lisa Reed and the team at Hazeldale Elementary. And as we think about those through lines of strong teams, leadership that has a clear vision and impact, Hazeldale Elementary was one of our standout schools. And so part of the reason that we considered them for presenting tonight is they definitely, as we looked at all of the scores, we saw that they had high growth rates in both literacy and in math. And some schools just had them in literacy and some just in math, but Hazeldale rocked it in both places. In their intermediate grades, their multilingual learners outperform their non-multilingual learners, which is outstanding and shows a focus on instructional practice and inclusion and voice. And obviously, as you're going to see in a minute, and you may likely know, just high levels of student ownership and staff ownership, frankly, around practices that are impactful, from goal setting to instructional strategies to the collaborative teams. So it is with great respect and joy and pride that I introduce Lisa Reed.
Thank you, Chris.
You bet.
Good evening, board members and executive directors and guests. I'm really honored to present tonight on behalf of my school and my students. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. So I'll tell you a little bit about Hazeldale. So we are a Leader in Me Lighthouse School. We're the only Leader in Me Lighthouse School in Southwest Washington. It simply means we use the 8 habits of highly effective kids to help teach leadership, goal setting, social emotional practices. And so I tell people we're kind of a big deal because we got our lighthouse status 2 years ago, and it just has become our foundation. So it's in everything we do, and we believe every student can be a leader, and we try to empower students to lead their own learning. We also, I thought this would be important to mention, we have in our master schedule, we have 20 minutes of win time for both reading and math. So every grade level, 4 days a week, has this additional time, 20 minutes reading, 20 minutes of math, where students can either get extension if they've already mastered certain skills, or they can get intervention. And so it's apart from core. And so I just really believe that that is part of our success as well. We are able to intervene and close gaps sooner than later. We also have a lap reading and math intervention teacher that we put our students of highest concern with our most knowledgeable teachers. And we also have, in terms of programs, we have a transitional kindergarten program, which is year 2. It's my happy place at school. Out of the 18 kids this year, 13 will come back to Hazeldale. We're their homeschool, and 5 have other homeschools. So those kids, they basically can do my job because they know Hazeldale and they know all the roles and all the things. And so they are the leaders when we place them into kindergarten for next year. We rely on them. We also have a learning support and two additional programs. We have a ICSP, we're in year 2. And then just this year, we have a life skills program. So that's new to us this year. We also have an FCRC coordinator who is instrumental. Like we meet daily, we talk daily, just vital to our work as a Title I school and as a high poverty school. So my goal today is really to talk about how we as a school have focused on aligning our Tier 1 instructional practices for reading. I'm just really going to stick to reading and kind of our process through that. So last year at the end of the year, this won't shock you based on the data you just saw. Our iReady scores overall were 44% of students were reading proficiently. And so it begs the question, and typically it's like it stays around that. And then as I started to learn more, go ahead and go to the next slide, the research says that 95% of students can learn to read when using evidence-based programs based on the science of reading. And I was like, say what? So I'm very curious about this. So we started to do some research. And anyway, this graphic basically says that there's 50% of kids that need explicit and direct instruction in their reading skills to be able to read proficiently. 30% will read without, no matter what instruction they're provided, whether it's based on science of reading or not. 15% will need additional time and support, which is those students we put in that lap and math time. And then 5% will likely struggle due to cognitive disabilities. So, and so that kind of set me to like, okay, we're going to do this wildly important literacy goal. And we set this 3 years ago, and it's very big, audacious, hairy, audacious goal, like no doubt. And so it's 95% of our scholars will be reading by grade level by the year 2026. That's next year. And you know what? We're chasing it. And we may or may not hit it, but we're chasing it. And so how are we going to do that? Our pedagogy will match the science. So as a system, K-5, every teacher has aligned their ELA block to match the pedagogy around the science of reading. And we use a 7-step instructional framework. And that it is not the 7 steps to a language-rich classroom, just so you know. This is a little different, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So this is our pathway, what we've been doing. So 3 years ago, year 1, this is really the trifecta to literacy success. And we worked with a consultant. Our district partnered with a education company called Educate, and about 2 years. And so that first year we focused with our teachers on what is the science of reading, because many of us were not taught that in our undergrad and in our graduate programs. Isn't that crazy, right? So there was a lot of learning and unlearning to do in that time. And then years 2 and 3, we're in year 3 right now. So years 2 and 3, we really focused on, okay, so the what is the research, and that's often where it stops in education. We don't tell teachers the how. We kind of let them figure it out. But working with this education company, we adopted there's a K-5 Tier 1 instruction framework. So for each grade level, it's broken down by what a kindergarten student needs in foundational skills, reading and writing, and it's 7 steps. So we call it Empower Hour, EM and then Power Hour. And then, grade 5, it's still the 7 steps, but it looks a little different. And basically the 7 steps go through reading aloud, building background knowledge, working on phonological awareness, what are the sounds for the younger grades, sound to print, the different ways to spell. Today I was in a classroom for the long vowel A. What are the different ways to spell? Morphemes, syllable types, let's see, vocabulary, sentence structure, syntax, like and then reading and writing and integrated reading and writing. And then the instructional intelligence is really that the teacher is happy in their pace. We're keeping it popping. It's super positive. We're having fun while we're teaching. We are listening to student responses as they read, write, speak, chat, share. We're listening so that we can diagnose and correct errors quickly. So we don't wait for it to like be an issue, 2 weeks down the road. Let's just clean it up right now. And so that is what we've been doing the last 3 years, and we are in year 3. So here are the structures that have been behind the scenes to help support that work. The first is that we've done a multi-year plan, like I just showed you. And it really just allowed implementation in stages. So teachers didn't feel like all this, because my teachers just want to they want to kick booty. They just want to do good for kids. And it can feel like they can get nervous about like, oh, I'm just not good about this yet. And so like there was a lot of grace, like grace to grace to try, grace to implement, and then ask questions. There was also a lot of just-in-time PD support. So we would bring in the educate consultant to help, every like 2 or 3 months, we would have her come in and hear from the staff. What are the challenges? What's going well? How can she support you? And then we've also just this year, my ML specialist has done some PD just with my Hazel staff around the 7 steps to a language-rich classroom, what Lucy talked about. We focused on 2 strategies this year that are being used school-wide. In addition to the 7-step framework. So what to say when you don't know. And then the QSSA is a big hit. It's where you have a question, you provide a STEM. Let's see, you provide a question, STEM, like a signal when you're ready to share, then you share, and then the teacher is assessing. I just saw that today as an exit ticket. And so it's just a structured way for students to share. So that was one way. And then this is probably my favorite way. I think this has been so valuable. Every Monday, I meet with 3 grade levels during the school day. From 11 to 1, I meet with 3 grade levels for 40 minutes. And in that group are the teachers. It's the reading specialist, the math specialist, my instructional coach, my ML lead. We are all in there, plus me, and teachers will bring in data. So we'll look at, questions 3 and 4 on do 4. What are we going to do if they don't get it? What are we going to do if they do have it? Just today, when my kinder team brought in a writing sample from the kindergarten Power Hour that we were assessing, kind of like where are kids at with their letter spacing, with their placement on the line, and that kind of thing. So basically twice a month, I meet with every grade level. And so I just know what's happening. I have a really nice pulse on what is needed. And then my Guiding Coalition is one of my teams. And we really just said, okay, Guiding Coalition is going to focus on the literacy work. I have other teams focused on math and then culture and climate. And so we meet twice a month to kind of be that other voice. And I have a grade level rep from every grade level. And then we also I had 7 staff who was just really passionate about this work. And we partnered with Educate, the company, and we were trained as trainers. So really in the future, as we get new staff to our building, I want to keep everyone forever, but the reality is I'm going to get new staff and they need to be trained. And so those people are going to be key. I also am in classrooms a lot every week. I am in 10 times, 10 observations and 10 debriefs. I just did 5 today. And so I just had this really nice pulse of what is actually happening in the classroom to help provide support. And then the last system that I'll talk about at the end is this Learning Olympics that we stole from Jason Lee Middle School, and we do some student goal setting. So at Hazeldale, this was our, so at the top line, you'll see our most recent winter data. And then that lighter line below, you see the fall. And so you can see the comparison. And really what I want to point out here is just the decrease. There's been a large decrease in students 2 or 3 grade levels behind. And then you've also on the other end, we don't really have this before. We're seeing a lot more students going to mid or above grade level at this point of the year. And so that has been a point of celebration. I also want to mention that in 5th grade, we had 35% of students performing 3 or more grade levels behind since at the fall. And now we are at 19% performing 3 or more grade levels behind. And I feel like that's a big deal because in 5th grade, as you get higher up in the grade levels, it is a lot harder to close that gap. So that's just a little highlight about that. This is another Hazel Dell source of pride. So this is the percentage of students with improved placement. So from the fall to winter in reading, they're, moving from grade 1 to grade 2, or, two levels behind to yellow. However we want to, I don't know exactly how to, read that, but definitely a place of pride. My 4th grade in particular, like my MLs, 38% of my MLs have already met their expected typical growth. And that is 2% above the district population for ML growth. And then it's 1% more than what our students at Hazel Dell, their typical growth. And so I just share that because it's comparative. There isn't this disparity in MLs not improving as much. And so there's a lot of other wins, but definitely grade 4 is mentionable. I have Jordan Genty is a 2nd grade teacher, and there's so many things to share about how the 7 steps of Empower Hour have impacted teachers. But she's in actually year 6. This was last year's photo, but she went from no confidence in herself as a reading teacher. She dreaded it, to now she plans reading first. And because basically the routine, you can take the routine over any curriculum, over Wonders, over, whatever you're teaching. And then it kind of keeps you on track. You spend this many minutes on this, this, and this. She also said the routine of the routines have, instead of students putting their cognitive load on the like the routine back to your desk, students know that, and they're just focused on their learning now. And she saw a huge class average of 93% progress toward their typical growth, and they're only halfway through the school year. So she is one of the teachers on the Train the Trainer group. I'm really passionate about this work. This is Jimena, and before you play it, I'll just give a little background. She's a 4th grader, and she has, last year in 3rd grade, just to give you a sense of how far she's come, she was reading 5 words per minute, correct, per minute at the beginning of a 3rd grade. Can you imagine how hard that is to access text? By the end of the year, she was reading 50 words per minute. At some point, she's taking her iReady diagnostic, and she's like, Miss Shinners, why is it not reading to me anymore? And Miss Shinners is like, because you're so far past that now. You don't need that reading to you. And she's like, oh my gosh. So she's come a long way. She scored 50 points just in this last diagnostic, and she increased two levels in vocabulary, informational text, and literature text. So here's Jimena and just sharing her pride.
Hi, my name's Jimena, and I'm in 4th grade. I'm in Ms. Heyman's class. Reading, I am excited because I did really good on my reading, and I did really super good, and I'm really proud of myself. And I bet my mom is proud of myself, proud of me, I mean. She's gonna be really happy, and I did it all by myself with no help, with no Miss Heyman, my teacher. Getting better at reading was being proactive and thinking first, and then to not get frustrated, so I don't have to get mad every time. And I always take a big breath every time to not get really mad. 100%. She's all cool.
So that's Jimena. And then the next slide, we did this, like I said, I stole the idea from Jason Lee, the Learning Olympics. So this is Jimena. Every student has a leadership portfolio where we do goal setting and tracking our goals. And so Jimena killed it. She got a gold medal because we had it by certain points. So the gold medals got yes requests, which I stole from Lakeshore. And students could pick a yes request. Basically, the adults have to say yes as long as it's appropriate. It's free. It can only be 5 minutes. And so she wanted extra recess. I have a lot of kids who want to be my job, be a principal for 5 minutes. Like I think I have 75 kids that want to be a principal. So, and then if she got gold, she got all the other prizes too. So she got candy and a bag of chips. So just a really, this girl is so special to me. I've seen her just grow. And like when she said, I don't get frustrated, I take deep breaths. That's what she used to do. She just used to shut down when it came to reading. And so now she feels like she can access. So thank you so much for listening. Are there any questions or?
Hi, Lisa. First of all, I'm not surprised, having visited your school a couple of times, that you are here with this amazing work that you guys have done. And I just want to say to any of my fellow board members who have not visited your school, if you want to pick me up, visit this school. What they do across the board is absolutely amazing with self-efficacy and leadership. It's just so impressive, which of course is going to translate into being lifelong learners and having the skills to succeed and wanting to succeed. So I'm just so delighted to have you here this evening. And
Thank you.
Everything that you're doing is just so amazing to me. Thank you for all of your hard work, and not only working hard, but also inspiring your staff to do it with you. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're going to go from one rock star to another. I feel like we needed to lay out the red carpet tonight. Sarah J. Anderson and Nicole Reinfeldt at the helm of Sarah J. has had their school had the highest rates of typical growth for elementary schools in VPS. That's pretty significant. And you only need to talk to Nicole for a minute to know what a systems focused person that she is and how she is dialed in when it comes to knowing who her students are and what their needs are and how to get them to the finish line. So learning is definitely a priority, and you'll see their school improvement plan woven throughout her presentation. But when it comes to systems and structures, she is an exemplar for real. You'll also hear her talk about collaborative teams and professional learning. So Nicole, I'm really delighted to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chris. That was so kind. And thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. Good evening. As Chris said, I'm the principal of Sarah J. Anderson Elementary. You can move to the next slide. I'm the new kid here. So if you're not familiar with me, or if I'm not familiar with you, it's because I'm still finding my way through VPS, but I have a great support system and I'm feeling a lot more settled now. I'm in my 2.5 year. So I'm into my 3rd year, but we've really only completed 2.5 years together as a school. And I took a moment to think about, wow, what we've accomplished in just a very short amount of time. So I do want to honor and acknowledge the many paths that come through Sarah J. Anderson. I know there's a lot of folks in the district who got their start in leadership in this building. There are many standing principals who've also worked in the building. And so, I mean, I'm coming in and continuing work that has a very strong foundation. So I've been very blessed in that regard. So it's been a great pleasure. When I first got hired at Anderson and did a lot of listening with the staff, they impressed upon me the need to bring a sense of calm and wellness to the building. There has, we were still at that time dealing with a traumatic incident. There had been some principal turnover. Things had been pretty unstable, feeling very unsettled. And so the folks in my team were really happy to hear that I have a trauma-informed background, that I'm bilingual, bicultural, and that I have a lot of experience in working with school communities that are dealing with a lot of things. And so that was the goal, was to make sure that we built high levels of trust make sure that we prioritized taking care of each other and being clear about expectations and providing high levels of support, and that one person could not do this all on their own, that we have to work as a team. And so collective efficacy is at the center of everything we do, and that's what you will see throughout this presentation. Can go to the next slide. Thanks. So in our building, I joke about this because it's like a little mini United Nations. I love how many different programs and kinds of learners are in our building. We've got our dual language immersion program serving K-5 students in English and in Spanish. And then we have at the same grade levels, we have English language immersions, what I like to call it, but just your standard kind of English speaking classrooms. We've got learning support in our building. So we are supporting students with IEPs, special education needs. And new this year is our integrated communication and sensory program, as well as our life skills program. So getting the opportunity to serve students who have specialized services beyond a learning support model has been a real treasure this year. We also have our family and community resource coordinator who supports heavily with our community, and we consider her an integral member of our multi-tiered system of support. And we've been able to provide, through Family Solutions, mental health and wellness services to our students in the building who could not otherwise access them in the community. And that's just been such a gift to our school community. And our students, they're benefiting so greatly from this. So our whole goal is to look at all these different people, all these different programs, all these different things. How do we come together as a united school and share a sense of collective responsibility for each of our students? And that's been our mission this year. So you can, next slide. And as you can see, like similar to Lisa's slides, the bottom bar is our current distribution for fall reading. So that's whether or not a student performed 3 or more grade levels below, 2 grade levels below, et cetera, et cetera. On the top, you'll see our winter scores, and you will see that, like Hazeldell, we are decreasing the students who are in need of significant remediation and supports. We're increasing students who are moving, maybe just a grade level below, or like moving into even mid or above grade level in winter, which is really impressive. And especially considering the fact that our multilingual learners are also taking this assessment in addition to other assessments that they're taking, in addition to other data points that we're collecting. But to see that our school is still trending this way is actually a real testament to the collaboration that's happening in our building. Next slide. This slide will show you what the percentage of students with the improved placement is. So in grades 3, it was interesting, grade 3 came up earlier in the conversation around what's happening. I am really proud of the teaming that's been going on in my building at grade 3 in particular. They have taken it upon themselves to flexibly group students, provide that what I need, just like Lisa has shared. But they're doing it even across programs. So dual language teachers and English teachers are sharing students based on data, based on need. And again, it's just building this sense of community and shared ownership for learning. So to have 55% of our students in grade 3 move one placement, or at least one placement up from from fall to winter, is just really incredible. So I'm very proud to speak on that, 4th and 5th grade also. One of the other data points that I believe is very important to share is that we have our Upbeat survey. So that's our staff climate survey. So not only are the students demonstrating growth and performance, but one of the key indicators of collective efficacy is really a sense of trust, right? Or like a key component of a belief that we can and will do things together is like, how much do we trust each other? So this data shows that compared to my second year in the building, from my second year in the building to my third year in the building, we are growing in very strong ways towards high levels of trust. So, look at the I trust my principal is up 18 points from the year prior. I mean, that is really incredible. And the teachers at my school trust each other to be up 18 points. That shows that we are really actively working towards a strong sense of collaborative community. Next slide. So some of the structures, so as Chris said, I love systems. I'm a nerd that way. I do love teaching and learning. I always thought I was more of a teaching and learning person, but I think I'm more of a systems person because systems help you get to the teaching and learning. So we have built a very deliberate inclusive master schedule. And so every summer we have brought together a team of staff in our building from all different perspectives to bring them together to develop our master schedule. And this year we had the non-negotiables of saying all students had to have access to core instruction and that we were going to have safe, calm, and predictable schedules and ways of working. And we also wanted to prioritize people's ability to work together during the school day. So one of the highlights of our schedule this year has been our ability to build professional collaboration time into the work week, which is I was able to have our librarian support as another space for students to be in so that all of the students could be in a space for FAB so that their teachers could be free to come and work together. So we have 40 minutes of professional collaboration time. It's a team time to meet. And I have worked with my leadership team to build out a scope and sequence for professional learning that was really centered around science of reading and meeting the needs of diverse learners, and also embedded time for grade level teams to meet with our specialists. We have lap specialists. We were able to get lap reading. We are able to get a bilingual lap person to support our dual language students. And we've got our multilingual language development specialist, and our instructional coach co-leads this with me. And so we put these people together in a room and they talk about data, they talk about students, they talk about next steps, they talk about strategies that will work well with different learners, and they're always consulting with each other from there. And so that's building this really strong momentum. We also have our learning support teacher dips in when she can. Next year, our learning support teachers are planning to make sure that their schedules allow them to actually meet with every grade level once a month so that they can just kind of continue to have that free flow of information. But it's in its infancy, and we're seeing a lot of really good return on that investment of time. And as Lisa has shared, our guiding coalition is also building some professional learning and direction for our school. We are working on building academic vocabulary. We are working on structured conversations. We are working on building students' sense of self-efficacy also as a social emotional learning goal. And making sure that we are conferencing with students about their scores, about their performance on different assessments. So that's been very helpful. And then our multi-tiered system of support is just we built out at the beginning to calm our building down. We had to really focus on behavior supports and behavior response and social emotional learning so that we could get everybody safe and make it calm and predictable. And now we're really, really building out our multi-tiered system of support as it pertains to our academics and making sure that we're being very methodical in how we support our students. So next slide. So you'll see some of the actions I had spoken to are here. I think one other thing that I would add is that we also this year did drop everything in test. So rather than leaving iReady up to the classroom teacher to just do and make sure they get it done by a certain time, we said, no, this is our testing week. All hands are going to be on deck for this. And so what it did is it made sure that all of our students with IEPs or 504 accommodations, all of our multilingual learners who get accommodations, were able to access that support and those accommodations, smaller testing environments, fewer distractions. And I believe that did have an impact on how well students were able to show what they know as well. Next slide. I would be remiss if I did not just sing the praises of my associate principal and my engagement specialist and our team that has been supporting all of our behavior systems in our building. They have really done an excellent job of keeping our building safe, calm, and predictable. We have put regulation at the center of our work, ensuring that everyone is able to self-regulate, that we co-regulate with students and with each other. We provide calming corners in classrooms. We provide our treehouse sensory space. We have planned breaks for students who have that in their accommodations. It's an actual system that we have. It's not just a set a timer and hope this kid gets their break. We actually plan this throughout our entire day. We've got over 630 students, and I'm not even sure how many of those planned breaks happen in a day, but it's a quite large system that we're managing. We have our round room for de-escalation. So if a student really needs a place to maintain their dignity while they just need to have some big feelings, we have that. And we are trained to support students in there. And we have also, we care about our staff. So we want to make sure we offered a lighthouse for our staff, which is also a regulation space for staff. And if they need it, they can call our treehouse. We will get radio to say, hey, can someone give someone a quick break? We will go. I will cover a class while a teacher takes a break. Whatever need they need to be successful that day. And we are absolutely protecting the needs of our most vulnerable students by ensuring that they have access to specialists and special services. And like I had said before, we're wrapping around with the wellness as well with Family Solutions. Family Solutions already has a full caseload and is has a wait list right now. So we're giving students what they need. Next slide. So in order to create this climate, it didn't just happen, right? We didn't just say, we're going to create systems, we're going to put people together. We did need to reach out to a contractor as well, a consultant, to help us with our social emotional learning focus. And so Lana Penley from Unlocking Cell has been working with us for 2 years on really supporting adults. She's focused on helping the adults in the building take care of ourselves and others, manage our stress, understand escalation cycles, just sort of understand how to calm ourselves down and to be in community. And then also by teaching us what it feels like to have this environment, we will teach students, right? So she's now helping us move into what does this mean for students? Our next learning that we're working on is on mind up curriculum. So using mindfulness in the classroom to support all of our students. We've also been fortunate to be able, like I said, embed science of reading into our professional collaboration time weekly. It's two times a month, but in that professional learning time that's dedicated for teams. The inclusive practices I mentioned earlier, where we have members of our special services team support learning for classroom teachers on how to meet the needs of diverse learners. We've also worked with CHAMPS and STOIC and making sure universal expectations are set. And again, escalation cycles and how to co-regulate with each other. The more we can stay safe, calm, and predictable, the more likely we are to be engaged in class. The more time we spend in class, the more access to learning. And so we're seeing the results of that right now. You can move to the next slide. And here are some voices from the field. So I had some they should be very proud and singing their songs from the mountaintops, but they were like, please don't take a picture of me and please don't take a video of me. So here we are. I'm so sorry. But 2 amazing humans in my building, Emily Mundy, a 4th grade teacher, and Novalee Rice, a 4th grade student, sharing about our work together. So Emily has talked about that we're really a united school right now that fosters this inclusive environment where everyone feels valued and supported. She's an excellent model of collaboration. She has a student in her classroom that also attends the life skills program. And so this child has maybe, I think, per his IEP was only like 20% of his day was going to be in gen ed, but we're working on actually increasing that amount of time because it's such a successful partnership. And he's doing so well. So, and then Novalee talks about how she was practicing really hard and for her iReady test because she really wanted to beat her old score. And this is an example of conferencing. Her teacher did sit down and talk with her about what her goals were. And she said, I'm going to get 50 points or more on this test. And that's actually pretty bold. It's a pretty bold jump. And the teacher's like, are you sure? And she said, yes. So I think she ended up with like 44 points. So she almost crushed her goal, but it's because the teacher took the time to talk with her about her goals, and she was motivated to really work hard to meet those goals. And so I think that's a testament to, again, that shared ownership of learning in our building. And then I can open up to any questions you may have.
Oh, Nicole.
Yes.
This is Kathy, and I just want to thank you as well. You and Lisa both have that amazing quality of not only being focused, but also being welcoming and collaborative, and being a leader that entices people to come in and want to do the work. And I do know, Sarah J's had a rough, almost decade. And so to have somebody come in who can just really like feel the pulse of their community and then go from there. So thank you so much. And again, that early work that you did as far as setting how do we want our community to feel, it's not surprising that now the academics are showing up. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Huge thank you to Nicole and Lisa for taking time this evening to share. We're going to hear from another excellent administrator here shortly after just a couple slides from me. And it's no mistake that having a vision for instructional leadership, creating a culture, developing systems, and providing professional learning that's aligned makes an impact. And so hearing from Lisa and Nicole was powerful. I'm going to share with you the similar slides that Chris did. We wanted them to be consistent. And please know that we are happy to look at data in so many different ways. We're trying to be really concise tonight so we could focus on the school leaders and the application. So here is a very similar slide that Chris shared around middle school iReady reading trends. And so in the first table, you'll see percentage of students on grade level, either at the beginning of the grade level or advanced, and then percent of students that have met the annual goal already, and percent of students with improved placement. And there's 5 different placement levels in iReady that you can span across. And so just a movement from one level to the next between diagnostic assessments would represent an improvement. So we also color-coded cohorts, so you could see that over the last 2 winters. And there's some room to grow for us in terms of proficiency. It's fairly stable, and we're not seeing a lot of movement there. We are seeing movement and growth in terms of students meeting their annual goals, and also students moving improve in placement, and not only in the overall general population, but in some groups as well. Go to the next slide. So I'm going to highlight a couple strengths and then some opportunities. And I think you're going to hear some alignment from what we shared at the beginning, what we heard from some of our elementary principals that we're going to hear afterwards. One of the strengths that really popped out, and I was sharing this with Chris, I put a star next to it because it really, I think, is a celebration that as we look from K to 8th grade, specifically in the percentage of students meeting their typical growth goals, we're going up in percentage every single one of our grade levels all the way up to 8th grade. That really stood out to me. I was like, wow, this is truly a testament to how hard kids are working, how hard our educators are working on helping kids grow. So that's a neat highlight. We also recognize in the middle school reading trends that our multilingual learners are improving placement at nearly the same rate as non-multilingual learners. Huge testament to the investment in language development. And Lucy's team has done amazing work in providing that professional development around 7 steps. That's great for all kids. You're going to hear that with Principal Whipple coming up shortly as well. And then there's been a focus around multi-tiered systems of support. You heard a bit about that from Lisa and from Nicole as well. And in terms of the deep professional development with language development, instructional practices, we're seeing that have an impact. We have some opportunities to align systems across schools in terms of with elementary and middle, and what we're doing to support students that are multiple grade levels behind at the middle school level. We're doing a deep review of our curricular resources. Chris and I provided a presentation to school board members around the deep need at the middle school level, and are excited to move forward with an adoption committee there. And a similar trend around strand data that we're seeing that students need more opportunities with informational text. And that really pulls a call in from all different content areas. Just kind of pause on that for a moment and then go into the math trends just to see if there's a comment or question. And math trends, similar on the proficiency. There's room to grow there, but yet the growth, we're seeing kids make growth in terms of meeting annual growth goals, and also with improved placement. You can see that across the winter and the cohorts, and also if you could click to the next slide, Jeff. It's very interesting. That star, I think, is significant in that each one of our grade levels, and I can just read the number here, as we look at 8th grade or middle school from fifth to 6th, we had 29% meeting annual typical growth in 5th grade, to 30, to 34, to 40%. Every one of the grade levels, we had more kids meeting annual growth, which I think is an important highlight, and we want to have some momentum with how kids are growing. I want to highlight that our Hispanic Latino students had the highest percentage of improved placement, and that group of students in multiple schools is an equity priority group, and that's worth highlighting. Measurement and data was a strength domain across all three grade levels, 6th, 7th, and 8th. I'm going to share similar opportunities in that the MTSS systems that we're leaning into and creating schedules and intentional opportunities for kids, that's an avenue to reduce the percentage of students that are 2 and 3 grade levels behind. And you heard Lisa share that story, and it's an opportunity for us at our middle and high school levels. We'll also lean into the systems that we've created with professional learning communities, being really clear about what we're trying to teach, having common assessments in between these benchmarks, and using that data to design classroom-based interventions. We certainly are seeing foundational gaps in number and operations at the middle school level, at the high school level as well. And that's a challenge for our educators to both ensure grade level access and also identify those skills that are part of that developmental continuum. Chris was talking about that. Kathy, I heard you react to it. For our middle and high school educators to know what is the developmental continuum for these concepts, and how do we anchor it back to where kids are having those misconceptions. So we have work to do there. It's exciting work, but that's kind of a brief analysis of both the reading and the math trends in iReady right now. So excited to introduce Principal Whipple next. And we identified Discovery Middle School because they, at 7th and 8th grade, had the highest iReady reading growth rates. And that's exciting. And it also comes from intentional work, from the school improvement planning, through use of data, the leadership teams that Principal Whipple has organized, and really valuing student voice to make adjustments. They've had a deep professional learning focus around language development that you're going to hear about. And I think you're also going to hear around how student voice or teacher voice is involved in collaborative teams across the school. So excited to introduce April. Her and I go way back to today's studying National Board teaching together, and excited to be alongside her as an administrator. So April, you get the floor now.
All right, thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here to share with all of you guys about Discovery and the work we're doing here as a team. If you want to go to the next slide. So this is my 5th year as the principal at Discovery Middle School, and actually my 11th year here overall. Since about 20 years ago, I was a teacher here and also an associate principal here. So it's great to be back at Disco. I am honored to share with you just the story around our school improvement planning process. And my focus is going to be on how we bring the school improvement plan into our day-to-day work at Discovery and really make it a living focus of the building and the things that we do. And also how that creates a shared leadership and an opportunity for clear systems in the building. So we can go to the next slide. So the first chunk is around just the actual school improvement planning. Next slide. We all know that we work through the documents, especially Discovery is a school that receives I-grant funds. And so we definitely have these long documents that we do for the state, but those aren't really necessarily helpful for our staff and our families to understand what our goals are and where we're going as a school. So if you go to the next slide, one thing we really work on is having really clear visuals of our vision, our mission, and all of our school improvement plan and goals so that the staff can really understand where we're going and what our focus is. So every time we get together with the staff, this is a slide that we show to show where we're headed. And then the next slide is what we call our school improvement plan on a page. It's taking everything from, the 30-ish page document that is the school improvement plan for the I-grant and putting it into one clear area where we have our instructional pieces we're focused on and also our climate and culture. And then that bottom section in the white is identifying what is the data that we use, and then what are equity priority groups in those different areas. And we do have 2 different equity priority groups in our school. So on instructional side, we're focused on our ML students who are also Hispanic. And then on climate and culture, we're looking at 2 or more races as our priority group. Go to the next slide. All right, this is just an example of one of our goals because I wanted to highlight how we make it visual for our staff. So whenever we're working on school improvement plan pieces or professional development, we reference back to the plan and what the goal is. And then we go ahead and show visually where did we find that information. So this is an example of our climate and culture goal around our decreasing of discipline disproportionality, and then also increasing our attendance. And so we want to make sure that not only do staff understand what our goals are, but they see the charts as a visual on why we picked that as a goal and where it's coming from. Okay, you can go to the next slide. The most important part with the school improvement plan is to go ahead and make it actionable. So we do go ahead and take all areas of our school improvement plan and put those into work plans so that we can decide on what is it that we're doing, when is that going to happen, and who's the lead and what resources are needed. And so we actually have 4 different work plans that have this type of structure. You can go to the next slide. And the reason we have those is because we have a committee structure at our school where we break apart the school improvement plan into committees so that there is shared ownership and leadership among the different areas of the plan. So on the next slide, you can see the 4 committees that we have at Discovery. So we have our PBIS committee that is led by one of our associate principals and a teacher leader. We have our equity committee that's led by our other associate principal and a teacher leader. Our ML and UDL committee is led by our language development specialist along with a classroom teacher. And then our PLC committee, or it's also known as the guiding coalition at the district level, is led by myself and then a teacher leader as well. On the next slide, you can see how we take the school improvement plan and break it up among the committees. So the PLC committee or the guiding coalition, we share the reading and math goals with the ML and UDL committee. That is our clear focus when we're deciding what we're going to do throughout the year. And then the equity team and the PBIS committee, they take the parts of the school improvement plan that are around climate and culture, and they share and focus on those areas. The next slide. So once the committees have a focus area, then it's time to look at what data are they going to use and how are they going to put that data into action. So on the next slide, you can see that with the 4 different committees, we all have different data that we look at. So when it's time to do a data dive, we don't spend as much time as our entire faculty together doing the data dive. We find we get more energy when in those small committees, we can have those groups dive into the data that's specific to their area. So PLC, we're going to be looking at iReady and SBA data, while the PBIS committee, they're diving into discipline and attendance, whereas equity is looking at their panorama data or their name calling a protected class or upbeat. So that gives you an idea of how different groups are looking at different data sets. On the next slide, I just wanted to point out that there's 2 sets of data. So in some cases, in that last slide, we were talking about the data that we already have as a district and how we're analyzing and looking at it. But the other things committees can do is they can create their own data. So when there is a need for additional data, you can dive in and create something. So for instance, if the panorama survey talks about the sense of belonging numbers from our students, our equity team then has gone ahead and done student interviews to ask more questions around what would it mean if you belonged? How do you feel like you belong? What are the things that the school's missing? And then those student interviews give them further information. So you take the big district data, and then you're able to dive further by doing either staff and student surveys. For Champs and Stoic for data tracking, for instance, we had a goal around greeting students at the door and using entry tasks. And so we had data collection sheets for staff to use during passing periods and at the beginning of classes, so we could share that data with staff to see how we were doing. All right, next slide. So the committees, what is the purpose for that? So each committee is working on goals for the year, and part of the work on moving their goals forward is the way that we structure our staff meetings. The next slide. So we have staff meetings every single Wednesday morning. So assuming there's 4 Wednesdays in a month, one of the weeks is for committees. So that is that structure that we just talked about. So everybody has to be at a staff meeting. So everybody also is on a committee. They do get to choose what committee they're on. Then the second week, we have professional development that's led by a committee. The third week, we have our student support team, which is part of our MTSS process, where grade level teams talk about tier 2 interventions for specific students. And then the fourth week is back to PD again by another committee. So this structure allows the committees to know at the very beginning of the year that they are going to have a staff meeting every quarter that they get to plan out and decide what curriculum is moving forward. So that helps those committees plan throughout their entire year on what information needs to get to the full staff, what professional development topics need to occur, what are those opportunities when we have everybody at the table that we need to share out. Next slide just gives a glimpse of when we are looking at our calendar as a full year, how we're scheduling in those rotations to make sure that we're hitting each of those committees, and we're hitting them throughout the year to spread out that knowledge and be able to have committees return back to things that they had previously studied. And then the other neat part is that rather than an administrative team being at the front leading all the staff meetings, we have that shared leadership. So that committee determines who in the group is presenting, what information are they sharing, who are the experts on the staff. And so teachers are hearing from other teachers to make sure that we have that shared leadership piece. Okay, next one, thank you. So one of the focuses that we have as part of our school improvement plan is on engagement strategies. And we're specifically looking at our equity priority group, which is our ML students who are also Hispanic. And the growth that we need them to make, right? They are not making the same gain, sorry, they are making great growth, but they're not at the same benchmark as our students who are not ML and not Hispanic students. And so one of the things we have been looking at are 2 resources we've been using. So Shiraki Holly has a text, cultural and linguistically responses for teaching and learning. And so with Holly's work, we really focus on his engagement strategies. He has a great section in this text that gives so many, I wish I could remember, I think there's like 80 different strategies to use in the classroom for engaging students and making them active learners in the classroom. And then we also partner this with the 7 steps. And so we've had a great opportunity to send people to training with Dr. Salva and have her work with them around those engagement strategies for the classroom. And so one of our requirements, no matter what committee is doing PD on a Wednesday, is that they are using an active engagement strategy from one of these sources and citing that during it. So Shiraki Holly has one that's called Campfire. So if that strategy was used, the slide where that was used in the PD would call out like, hey, this is from Campfire and it's on this page of Holly's text. And then the staff would engage in the activity using that strategy. And the goal is the more the staff are using the strategy, then the more we're seeing them bring that back into their classroom with the idea that the students who are doing are learning. If you're actively engaged in doing something, then you're actually learning in that classroom. So I was in an observation just last week in a classroom where an engagement strategy was used. And so we are going to hear from Quinn, one of our students, on that engagement strategy. So you can, sorry, go back and you're going to play the little speaker there. All right, so can you tell me about a strategy your teacher uses?
So Mr. Condit will use this thing he calls the wheel of scales, and it has all the sections for each instrument, and it will have all the scales that we've learned how to play for each person. Each section, and it lands on a random one, and you'll have to choose a random representative from your section to play that. And if each person in your section can play all the each scale or a scale twice in a row correctly, or not in a row, you all win, and you don't have to play anymore. Yeah.
Okay, and why do you like that?
I like it because it helps the element of surprise, like you don't know what it's gonna land on. And it's really fun.
It was fun to watch Quinn with his peers in class because like he mentioned, with the wheel this teacher was using to engage kids, it would call upon a section, not necessarily a specific student. And so when there was a specific scale up there, it was fun to see them huddle together to decide like which student they thought was going to be the one that they were going to have play that scale. You know, they knew everyone was going to need to participate, but they were being strategic around, you know, who was taking on which scale. And so that was just one example of some of the engagement strategies that we've seen. I know with 7 steps, it's been great to see some of our teachers do the color-coded groups with the numbered seats. And so, you know, you release the students to talk at their table, and then before you release them, you say, okay, just remember, purple number 3 is going to be sharing out when we're done with our group talk. And so strategies like that to put some accountability into those engagement strategies in the classroom. Okay, next slide. All right, so with looking at the data, I wanted to give an example of like how the data layering works and then what that cycle is like. And so I do lead the Guiding Coalition, or the PLC committee, with Dale Westora, who is a science teacher. And so in this one, she's just going to talk through this slide about kind of her role in that process and an example of a project we're currently working on. So you can play that speaker.
At Discovery, we are honored to choose the committees we are a part of, and many committees are led by teachers. The PLC committee this fall that I co-lead reviewed the iReady data and noticed a trend with academic language. As a committee, we researched top vocabulary strategies and words that can be used within all content areas. The committee sent a survey to all staff for their feedback on the top vocabulary words that can be used. With these results, the PLC committee will then provide resources for staff and will conduct a professional development at our staff meeting. We have also taken this to our Avid site team and incorporated the same vocabulary, strategies, and words within our Avid site team. As a school, using these multiple layers of data as a whole school, our PLC committee has found that this is how we can recognize a need and find ways in which we can help students become successful.
So I just wanted to give that as just an example of how these committees take that bigger level of data and then create additional data where when they have more questions or need more answers, and then how that leads to that next step of school-wide professional development of those teacher leaders presenting and bringing the rest of the staff on board. So we're actually right in the middle of this right now, as you could tell how she switched verb tense there. So number 3 is what we had just finished. So actually tomorrow is a committee meeting day at Discovery. So in our committee, I am excited that we'll be looking at the survey results of the terms and finalizing our top 10 terms. And then in 2 weeks, we have the professional development day. So before we get to that point, 2 weeks from now, we will finalize which strategies for academic vocabulary that we're going to teach. And then also make sure we have resources provided for teachers to provide. I know we want to make a slide deck, some posters for classrooms, and also like cards for teachers that want to put up the word walls. And so that's kind of an example of how that works in action. All right, the next slide. It's also a huge data review cycle year to year. So this process never, ever ends. It just keeps going in a circle. So on the next slide, you can see an example of a mid-year review. So in this one, part of our current climate and culture goals, we have one around decreasing the percentage of name calling of protected class students, and then also increasing a sense of belonging. And these two goals actually live within our equity committee. So that committee has been working and doing PD around this all year. And so one thing we make sure to do at the mid-year point is when I am working on our school improvement plan and the application that goes in for the I-grant to the state, is updating all of that data and getting it to our entire school so that not only just the committee is aware of how they're improving in their focus area, but the whole school can see that. So here you can see in the red our mid-year progress in that area. And then of course, at the end of the year, we will again update it again. So when you go to the next slide, our last staff meeting of every year, we always make sure to do a celebration staff meeting. So we have every committee present and give their update on their goals and how they did, along with other groups too. Our librarian will share, how did we improve on our circulation rates? Our athletics will share on our numbers for the different sports teams. And so this is an example from last year. We had a goal around decreasing our majors, so the number of major discipline referrals. And so you can see the results that we were celebrating last year, going from the 2022-23 to 23-24 school year. And so this is an example of just a slide deck that the Climate and Culture Committee would have made to share out their celebration. And so we would go through all those goal areas just to make sure that we take that time to celebrate. And then next slide. All right, and so this is just emphasizing that cycle piece, that we will do that celebration, and then whether it be June of this year or August, so sometime either after school gets out or before the next year begins, that's when it's time for the committees to rework their goals. So based on what they did, what are the goals going to be for the next year? And then those work plans, they get started all over again. So then that committee, there may be things they didn't get to, so they carry over from last year into their work plan for the following year, or maybe they have a new focus. And so then they reset their goals and they reset their work plan. And so that cycle just continues to keep repeating. So that's just a little bit about discovery and how we take the school improvement plan and bring that into the structure of our building. Are there any questions at all?
April, I just want to say thank you. I'm not surprised that you have very detailed mode of operations. I love having specific committees working on specific things from your SIP plans. That really both gives efficacy and sorry, I'm on the East Coast right now, so it's very late. And accountability. It's sort of like we're in charge of this, but we also need to make sure that we've done this. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
I just wanted to, it was great to see how you've structured the execution of your SIP plans just through your quarterly rotation of meetings. I think as a board member, we see the SIP plans and we see kind of a lot of different data reports, but seeing kind of how it's executed, this was really insightful for me. So thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right, and to sum it up, thank you so much, April. So pretty much what you've heard this evening highlights the positive effects when we seek to understand and value our students' unique needs and experiences. You heard from schools like Hazeldale, Anderson, and Disco, and they really showcase high levels of growth for our students. These schools clearly show a commitment to our 5 collaborative commitments. Those are working in collaborative teams, ensuring a guaranteed and viable curriculum, monitoring student learning, using evidence and student learning to identify practices that are working and discontinue those that don't, and providing systematic interventions and enrichments. And these commitments are evidence you heard throughout the presentations, particularly when you look at the data review process that was talked about, and the data review cycles that April spoke to. These schools are strengthening access to necessary support systems so each student can thrive. We heard real impact stories from students like Hemina, Novalie, and Quinn, and teachers like Jordan, Emily, and Dale. And these are exemplars, so please know that we are committed to ensuring that strong and consistent learning experiences happen across our district so that all of our students can reach their full potential. Do you have any? I know it's been a long evening. We appreciate your time and learning, listening. Do you have any questions for us?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
Yeah, we really appreciate the team, and we do know it's a long evening, right? But we wanted to make sure that we had the 9-12, the pre-K-8, and really digging deeper beyond the dashboard and some of the high-level action metrics that we've had the last couple of years to get down to the student learning and student experience metrics that we know that you've been pushing us to move towards. So we'll welcome your feedback, not just tonight, but as you reflect on this. And we have a study session in March, and then we have the workshop in April. And I know Director Decker and Director Smith have already started to talk about some of the agenda items. And so please reach out and let us know. And I'll throw it back to you, Director Decker.
All right, just one more time. Are there any board members that have anything they want to add or say? No? Okay, so then I will, first of all, I want to thank, or last of all, I guess, thank everyone who presented tonight. And those of you who had to present at the very end, thank you for hanging in there. And I will hereby adjourn the meeting. It is, I have to do this backwards, it is 7:51 and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.